Joining me now is RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair CJ Pearson. CJ, tell me about the reaction to the shooting of this leftist agitator, Alex Pretty. There is an investigation into the fatal shooting. We'll hopefully have a clearer picture soon of what really happened. But what we already know is that these are not just peaceful protests in Minnesota. They are actively obstructing law enforcement. It's organised and often it's violent.
You know, they indeed are. And I think I'm going to follow the lead of the president when I say that I think we need to allow this investigation to unfold before answers or conclusions are jumped to in any way whatsoever. But I think it's important for us to realize that at the end of the day, when it comes to protests, we respect that as a country. But what we do not respect and what we do not allow are for people to blatantly come into, these violent conglomerates of folks and then brandish weapons or have them on their person. It's just not smart. And so what remains to be seen what exactly will come from this. But I think that what we will see is that this has all been a result of the violent rhetoric that's been spewed by folks on the left who are actively encouraging their followers to do ICE officers harm. I stand with our boys in blue, our men and women in blue as well, who are defending our country, defending our sovereignty, and simply ensuring that we actually enforce the immigration laws on the book. That should not be controversial. What should be controversial are these left-wing activists who are actively encouraging assault and violent crimes against our men and women in law enforcement.
It's an insurrection is what it is. It's clearly that, and it's curious that it's happening in Minnesota when we've got ICE operating across the country, but it's in this blue state that has been revealed to be a hotbed of fraud. And now we are seeing these violent protests and obstruction of law enforcement. CJ, we're also learning more about this particular activist's actions. Let's listen to this report from CNN.
Alex Pretty had a physical encounter with federal agents about a week before he was shot and killed by law enforcement. Sources tell CNN that Pretty broke a rib when a group of federal officers tackled him while he was protesting.
So, CJ, he was in a violent clash with federal agents a week before he was shot dead, and he goes back for more with a loaded gun and extra ammo. I mean, these are questions, like you said, we're going to have an investigation, but it seems most of the media, most of the people having meltdowns online aren't even reflecting on those facts.
Not at all. Usually when someone F's around and finds out, it only takes one time. He had to go back for a second helping. It actually is a little bit confusing to me, right, when you look at the facts of this case. But I think that, the revelations that we're already beginning to see just days after this, of course, again, tragic incident will only begin to double and multiply. And I think that the left will have a hard time defending what exactly we saw happen in this instance. I think they're looking to move on from this very quickly. I think they're looking to, pounce on this issue as a way to demonize our law enforcement officers as they have throughout this entire ordeal. We cannot let them. And I think that, again, it goes back to the fact that the president has a resounding mandate that was given to him just last year, or in 2024, when he was resounding and reelected, that said we would be conducting mass deportations. This is not radical. This is exactly what the American people voted for, and we ought to give them that.
Staying with the media coverage of this issue, Alex Pretty's image has been digitally altered by some media outlets to make him appear better looking. This isn't just fake news, CJ. It's insulting, I would argue, to the dead. And no surprise, MSNBC are among media outlets who have used this fake image.
You're right. It's exactly performative. It's all fake, but it goes to show just how desperate the left is to try to rob this narrative that the president is doing something that is, not in the best interests of the American people. The president and his allies and folks in the administration are working tirelessly every single day to keep Americans safe. They want to talk about folks like him. Let's talk about folks like Laken Riley. They don't want to have that conversation, because here's the deal. Laken Riley was a nurse as well, who was tackled and mauled in the woods. by an illegal alien who had no business being in this country in any way whatsoever. They want to talk about nurses. Let's talk about that nurse. Because when I said that we should never again have a Lincoln Riley, that was not conjecture from me. That was not a slogan. That was not some political saying. I meant that. The president meant that. His allies meant that. And we will not allow some left-wing rabble-rousers to distract us from that mission of keeping the American people safe.
Well, talking about left-wing rabble-rousers, let's hear from the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, doing all he can to lower the temperature. Of course, I jest.
We have got children in Minnesota hiding in their houses, afraid to go outside. Many of us grew up reading that story of Anne Frank. Somebody's going to write that children's story about Minnesota. And there's one person who can end this now.
I don't even know what to say to that. CJ, what's your response to that sort of rhetoric from Governor Walz?
You know, I've never met someone more low IQ than Tampon Tim there. You know, when I hear him speak about this issue, it's so divorced from reality that I'm just kind of confused if we're watching the same situation here. Minnesota children are scared to go outside. Well, if they're scared to go outside because ICE is outside, that's probably because they're an illegal alien. Do you think I'm scared to go outside? No, because I was born in Georgia, a U.S. state. And so here's the thing. ICE is going after criminal illegal aliens, some of the worst, rapists, murderers, people, assaulters, all of those things. And so, no, if you're scared to go outside because ICE is outside, then that's actually kind of the point. So we're not going to apologize for that.
Now, some businesses in Minneapolis are boarding up their shops. They are ready for more violence from these so-called protesters, so-called peaceful protesters from segments of the media call them, CJ. President Trump has sent border czar Tom Homan to Minnesota. Tell me more about that.
You know, Tom Homan is the consummate professional. He's someone that has been well regarded, not just on the right, but also on the left. It was President Obama who gave him an award for his service in helping aid the deportation operations during his administration. And so I think that, you know, if there's anyone that these folks will like to pretend that they're working with, it will probably be Tom Homan. And I think that he's going to bring a lot of order on the ground, a lot of professionalism to it. And so I'm excited to see this development. But I think that what's important to note is that we cannot let up. We cannot give in. That's exactly what they want us to do. Again, we have a mandate. We must act on it to keep the American people safe and to keep our country intact in terms of our sovereignty, in terms of our border, and the operations that folks are leading at DHS. Folks like Tom Homan is a critical linchpin in all of that.
You made an interesting point there. Tom Homan, these days, the left treat him like, as they treat every conservative or anyone on the Trump administration, as some fascist. But he was being awarded medals by Barack Obama for his service, doing a very similar role to what he's doing right now. And whilst he was doing it for the Obama administration, he was a hero in the eyes of the media. But now he is being smeared in the most ridiculous fashion.
You know, you're exactly right. It reminds me a lot of the way in which, you know, a lot of these leftist organizations treat President Trump when he was just a celebrity or a reality TV star or a billionaire businessman. The NAACP was giving him awards alongside Rosa Parks. And all of a sudden, when he ran for president, he was, you know, avowed white supremacist, Ku Klux Klansman in name only. It's absolutely insane, but it goes to show these people actually don't really care about the truth. They don't care about facts. They'll call you a racist just because it's convenient, not because it's true.
Now, before you go, CJ, there's no doubt that ICE's public image is taking a battering because this sort of coverage is relentless. But there are polls out, and another one came out yesterday showing that the majority of Americans support the Trump administration's deportation of illegal immigrants. I suspect the real figure there is considerably higher, CJ, but according to this latest poll, 52% against 42% who are opposed support illegal immigrants being deported.
Yeah, you know, it's a clear majority. And, you know, historically, we've seen polls, you know, underrepresent the president and his supporters. And so I think that number actually is a lot than you would imagine. And so, again, I think that the president needs to march on and continue to do the work that he pledged to do when he was running for president, which was to bring law and order and to secure our southern border. Under President Joe Biden, we had no border. Under President Trump, we have a border that is safe and secure. That's exactly what the American people voted for, and I'm glad to see it.
CJ Pearson, thank you so much for your time.
Good to see you, my friend.